The market was loud that afternoon. Not the gentle kind of loud, not background noise, but the kind that feels alive. Vendors shouting discounts over one another. Music playing from a small speaker balanced on a stack of crates. Children weaving through legs. Women bargaining fiercely over tomatoes like it was a championship sport. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, or at least thought they did. And right in the middle of it all stood a young black woman in simple clothes, worn white sneakers, plain gray hoodie, dark jeans, natural hair pulled back into a low puff. No designer bag, no jewelry flashing in the sun, no makeup trying to impress anyone, just her, quietly standing at a fruit stall, gently pressing a peach between her fingers. She wasn't in a rush. She wasn't trying to be seen. She was just checking the price. That's when it started. The vendor, a middle-aged man with an apron dusted in flour and fruit stains, noticed her hesitation. He rolled his eyes. "Ma'am," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "these aren't free samples." A couple of people nearby snickered. The woman looked up calmly. "I was just asking the price," she said softly. But the vendor wasn't done. "Price is for paying customers," he added, smirking. A man standing behind her chuckled. "Man, she probably can't even afford one." Another whispered, "She looks lost." Laughter spread in small ripples, not loud at first, but loud enough. Someone across the stall lifted their phone slightly, not fully recording, but enough to pretend they might. The woman didn't react. No anger, no embarrassment, no raised voice. She just looked back at the peaches, calm, composed, because this wasn't the first time. Her name was Maya Carter, and she had grown up 5 blocks from that very market. Her mother used to bring her there every Sunday morning, back when Sundays meant stretching $20, across a week's worth of groceries, back when Maya would hold her mother's hand tightly while listening to her whisper, "Count the change twice, baby." Back when peaches were a luxury, she remembered standing at this same stall as a little girl, watching her mother negotiate for bruised fruit because it was cheaper. She remembered the feeling of wanting more, but never complaining. That market wasn't just noise to her. It was memory. It was survival. And that's why she dressed simple, not because she couldn't afford more, but because she never forgot where she came from. The vendor cleared his throat impatiently. "You buying or just touching?" he asked, more laughter. Maya finally met his eyes, steady, unshaken. "How much for the peaches?" she asked again. He named a price higher than usual, a silent test. She nodded slowly. But instead of reaching into her pocket for money, she reached into her tote bag. The laughter softened. People leaned slightly closer. She didn't pull out cash. She pulled out a small, neatly organized folder. That's when the mood shifted. The folder wasn't flashy, just clean, professional. She placed it gently on the fruit stand. The vendor frowned. "What's this supposed to be?" Maya opened it carefully. Inside were official documents. Stamped papers, blueprints, city approval forms, legal notices. The crowd grew quieter. The man who had been chuckling stepped back a little. Maya tapped the top document lightly. "This property," she said, her voice no longer soft but steady and clear, "was approved this morning for redevelopment." The words didn't land at first. They floated, confused. The vendor blinked. "What?" she continued. "The city has finalized funding. The old stalls will be replaced. New structures, updated permits, health code compliance." Now the silence felt heavier. "New ownership," she added. "New management." The smirk on his face disappeared. "What are you saying?" he asked, voice tightening. Maya closed the folder gently. "I'm saying," she replied, meeting his eyes without blinking, "I'm the one who signed the final approval." A gasp slipped out from somewhere in the crowd. One of the younger vendors whispered, "No way." But it was true. Maya Carter was the youngest black female federal judge in the state, appointed just 3 years earlier after a career built on integrity, community advocacy, and relentless discipline. She had graduated top of her class, worked nights while studying for the bar, clerked for judges who once underestimated her too, and she never once used her title to demand respect. She believed respect should be given freely, not earned through fear. The vendor swallowed hard. I didn't know." Maya nodded gently. "That's the problem," she said. "You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with dignity." No anger in her voice, No revenge, just truth. The man who had laughed earlier avoided eye contact. The phone that had been half raised quietly lowered. Maya continued. This market will receive new funding. Local vendors will get priority in lease renewals. The vendor looked confused. You're not shutting us down? She shook her head. No, I grew up here. Murmurs spread. My mother shopped here every week, she added. This place fed us when we had nothing. The crowd shifted from shame to curiosity. She wasn't here to punish them. She was here to protect the community. But, she continued calmly, there will be standards. Fair treatment, transparency, no price manipulation. Her eyes rested briefly on him. And no humiliating customers. The message landed, deep. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said, barely audible. Maya gave a small, understanding smile. Growth begins with awareness. She picked up 4 peaches, examined them carefully, then placed exact cash on the table. No discount requested. No special treatment expected. Just fairness. As she turned to leave, a woman from the crowd called out softly, You really grew up here? Maya paused. Yes. The woman smiled nervously. We're proud of you. For the first time, Maya's expression softened beyond professionalism. Thank you, she said. And then she walked away. No security escort. No dramatic music. No applause. Just dignity. The market slowly returned to its usual noise. But something had changed. Conversations were quieter. Laughter was softer. Eyes were more careful. Because the lesson had settled in. The woman they mocked for her hoodie held the authority to reshape their future. And yet she chose grace. As Maya reached the corner of the street, she paused briefly. She looked back at the market. Not with anger. Not with superiority. But with hope. Because power, when used correctly, doesn't crush. It corrects. And that afternoon, the loudest thing in the market wasn't the music, wasn't the bargaining, wasn't even the laughter. It was the realization. Never measure a black woman's worth by what she wears, or where she stands. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the room holds the most power. And the strongest people, they don't need to shout to be heard.